Kia ora, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Team CP Media Podcast, brought to you by Team CP and specifically tonight by Team CP Nutrition. My name's James. I'm the understudy this evening, standing in for, of course, the media man with the mo, but I'm joined, like we always have on a Wednesday night, by the media man with the motivation, Team CP Captain Richard. Richard, there's a segue for you. Welcome along. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, James. Gee, Angus, I hope he's not watching because he might have a job. He might be out of a job.
No, I don't. I can't compete with that. I used to have a moustache, but not like that.
Yeah, good job. That's fantastic. How are you getting on tonight, James?
Yeah, really good, actually. I've found myself another room, but I'm all set up here. I'm looking forward to it. We've got some great guests tonight, and looking forward to having a good chat. It's been sunny, which has been excellent. I'm thrilled about that, as I'm sure most people are.
That's right. Yeah, the rain was quite fun for a start, but then kind of got over it by about mid-Monday, and it's coming. It's a pretty crazy few days, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was supposed to be a little race, a local duathlon race here in Christchurch, but naturally that was rained off as most everything else was. But the sun's out today, and I guess we'll talk about motivation and stuff a little bit later on in the show. But I guess now that the sun's out, it does make it a little more motivating to get outside.
Yeah, 100%. So our show tonight brought to us by Team CP Nutrition as our plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight's show is all about nutrition. We've got a few things from Cushla coming up, but essentially it's to perform to your potential, you need to get your nutrition sorted, which is what a lot of us know, but some of us are better at it than others. But this includes your baseline nutrition to help manage your appetite while enjoying your food and fueling on race day so that you can finish strong with a smile on your face. For practical, personalized nutrition support, check out Team CP Nutrition.
Nice work. So basically tonight, what our plan is if you fire a question as we go or highlight a key learning, something that you picked up from the show tonight, you're going to go in the draw to win a CP nutrition consultation with Cushla Jackson, who's going to come on the show to finish us, wrap us up and talk about a specific thing from her. So, but in terms of winners and bits and pieces, last week where Solomon was sponsoring our show, we had a Solomon prize pack. Jenny Rankin, who asked about gear that Brooke Thomas needed to carry during her overnight stages of a 3,000 kilometre Te Aroa trail adventure, which she completed in 57 days, and in doing so broke the women's record for how fast of actually getting that done by about 8 days. So if you missed that podcast, it was pretty cool. Head along to Spotify, iTunes, however you look at that. It's on YouTube as well, and check out what Brooke had to say about her 57-day adventure of running the length of the country.
Yeah, adventure's the word, isn't it? I wonder how much of that adventure only became sort of type 2 fun after a long period of recovery. You know, like how long did it take to think, wow, I actually did something quite cool? How much of it during the time was actually really painful?
Yeah, that's right. I think what she talked about was it got better as the run went on, as she got stronger, she got into the swing of it, which is pretty awesome. Our Everest challenge has just finished, James, over the course of May. How'd you get on?
Oh, well, look, I think without putting too fine a point on it, I'm kind of retrospectively making up for it. You and I kind of suffer from a similar ailment in that we both live in the flattish part of Canterbury, and finding hills is very difficult. So how did I do? Virtually, I probably did the most hills on Zwift that I've ever done, but actually riding on a hill probably leaves a little to be desired. How about you?
Yeah, a bit the same. Looking at Strava, I did 8 runs during the course of the month, and that totaled, I think, 36 vertical meters for those 8 runs. So that wasn't very useful for me for 8,000 meters. But did majority of mine on Zwift and managed to tick them over, and managed on our last group session on Monday morning. Basically got them done right as the session finished, which was pretty cool. But we had some pretty awesome performances. We had, I guess there was the pure option of being all on foot, cycling your vertical meters, or maybe the third one down is doing it virtually. Darren de Groot, 15,000 vertical meters during the course of May, and he did 189 kilometers, and it was all on foot. 1 Mount Everest and 1 Mount Cook added together. Braden Byrne is just into his mountain biking. He did 9,500 vertical meters all on his bike and really enjoyed his challenge. Lizzie Morgan and George Paul got together and hit 8,930. So as a bit of a team getting
Yes.
together, which is cool. Penny and Darren did 10,000 vertical meters together and all on foot. So they say thanks for the Team CP motivation as they went up and down hills in Nelson. And Belinda Farmer, who helps organise the Waka 100, we had a little bit of a bet on how we went on during the course of May, and I think she may just owe me a custard square. So that's been a good outcome to May for me.
Can you elaborate on why that is?
Basically, who's going to get the most? I live in Canterbury, so that's going to always be a bit tricky. And we went head to head. Luckily, she had a week at the Hawke's Bay Marathon, so that basically took her out of play and gave me a chance.
Nailed it. Nice. You take all the wins you can get, right?
100%. Other quick note is our cross-training class is due to start on Tuesday, the 15th of June. So, and thanks to the front runner for getting in behind that. So great to have that back on board. Really hasn't come back since lockdown. So really excited to get that back up and running. So look out for that as well.
Yeah, it's a really great class, isn't it? It's something I think that our Team CP community really looked forward to, and it was a great addition to the weekly schedule. So it's great to see that back up and running really soon.
Yep. And also for those that are out and around the country, we're also just developing the same sort of thing, but more of an online option too. So keep an eye out for that. But let's crack on with the show. So just a bit of an intro. We've got Kevin Holland. Kevin's been a Team CP athlete for a few years now and has completed the Kepler Challenge and earlier this year, the Coast to Coast. We're going to have a chat to him about his background, how his winter's going and his plans for the summer. And we're going to finish up the show with Cushla Jackson. She's going to discuss the key reason why your race day nutrition is likely to fail and what are we going to do about it. So, but we're going to kick off the show now with John Quinn. John Quinn's a high performance and mental skills expert and works to help people fulfill their potential, basically. So that sounds like a bit of you and me, doesn't it, James?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're always aiming for that. So I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, good. So, John, this is the second time I've had you on the show. So, really great to talk to you last time. Actually, a podcast that I've listened back to a couple of times for some of the learnings that you shared with us. So, yeah, pretty keen to have a bit of a chat about a few other things and delve a bit deeper to try and help both James and I, but also our CP.
Mostly me, John. Like it's
Mate, look, we all need help. No one's really mastered this bit, I don't think. So it's helped for all of us, I think. So yeah, it's a tough space. But thanks for having us.
Yeah, good stuff, John. So to kick off, how have you been? Like it was probably almost a year ago since we talked last. What's been happening? What's busy in your world? There's lots of sport going on. Rugby, there's the Olympics coming up. What are you involved in at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the Olympic stuff, I mean, all going well, that's going to go ahead. So we've got some of our athletes who are looking either to travel overseas soon or they're already overseas at the moment. So that's kind of getting busy because, again, the plans are changing all the time. We still haven't got clarity of what it will look like when they get there. So that's been an interesting one. Obviously, rugby finishes up soon. Hopefully the players, the team's got a final in them. So they've got another game this weekend, then one more against the Rebels next week. Then hopefully they get to a final after that. And kind of the cricket stuff almost starts coming around now also because the pre-season stuff and thinking about that. So, since last year, obviously COVID put a spanner in the works for a lot of sports. I think there's getting a bit more clarity, but still internationally there's still I suppose uncertainty of what that can look like. So the athletes who are looking to get overseas, the plans are changing all the time. So, their mindset becomes really important because they have to adapt. And things are changing, and even with the Olympics, I think they're on to about the third workbook around what that's going to look like. So, it's things are moving forward, but it's still not where it was probably 18 months ago. So that's the challenge for our athletes, and it's the challenge for all of us in day-to-day life at the moment.
That's right. I guess it actually, you would see that as quite exciting almost in your work, is it? Like actually, how do we get over top of this challenge and deal with it? Because it's not normal. It's new. It's all new and changing, isn't it?
Look, it isn't, and that's a bit. For most of us, we don't like change. I mean, we do like settled routines. We do like to know what we're going to do next week, and I suppose that's changed. You saw that in Aussie last week with the lockdown there, and I'd love to say that we were out of the woods with that too, but we may still go through them, and that's the bit people, I suppose, are struggling with the most, and that's where we took it from I suppose, a wellbeing perspective. That's what's probably wearing people down because there is that uncertainty, and there's certainly some challenges for some athletes that were potentially going to do their last pinnacle event last year, and then things got postponed. World Cups, Olympics, and then having to go around that circuit again has been quite challenging for them too. So I suppose the quote we've been using a lot is that kind of Charles Darwin one. It's not the survival of the fittest or the strongest or the fastest. It's the survival of the one who can adapt the quickest to the situation. I think that's what we're going to kind of hold on to is our world has changed forever. It's not going to be the same. And I think the issue we had a lot of the time was everyone wanted to get back to normal. Well, I think that there's going to be a new normal. We'll probably everyone's sick of hearing that word, the new normal, but I think that's the reality of it. It's I just read something before that they're saying that probably our borders might not be open next year, where I thought potentially they could be open next year. So there's all that stuff still playing around. And I think we've been sheltered from that in New Zealand because most of us we've been able to get on to pretty much normal day-to-day stuff, and we've been pretty lucky. Obviously, some of the industries and tourism and hospitality have been hit, but some have done very well.
Yeah. Nice work. So let's get into some of the questions and things that I had here. We there's constantly working and talking to people about basically the mental skills side of things, and one thing that's come up around a bit of reading lately is the professor brain versus the chimp brain. So we've got different, from a physiological perspective, how our body works and how our brain works. So from your perspective, what's the difference between those two sort of parts of our, I guess, brain? It's not even thinking, is it? How do we cope with different things? Why is it important to know the difference? And how do we cope with stressful situations like standing on the start line by knowing about that better?
Look, I suppose it's understand there's lots of parts of the brain, and one of the key things is the brain will look for threats first and foremost. So that's kind of your chimp part of the brain. It's always looking for threats. And it's from that basic, we have a negative bias, we're all born with it, and it's a survival instinct for us. And that comes back from hundreds and hundreds of years ago when, there were lots of threats out there for us. So the brain's always looking for a threat. And once it's looking for a threat, I suppose our logical brain, the frontal cortex part of our brain will go offline. And that's where we make silly mistakes, and we don't do things that we'd normally do. So the key thing around it is understand that that's really normal, and it's how you kind of, I suppose the key word here is self-awareness, and often we all think we're self-aware and we're not. But we're not very good at kind of stopping and pausing during the day to check in to see how we're tracking and how we're doing. So what we know, the body gives us really clear indicators if it's in trouble because it gives us pain. The brain doesn't, and we're not very good at looking for situations where maybe we're getting stressed or we're feeling stressed. We don't stop and pause and take our pulse, check our breathing, do a body scan and check in to see how we're going, because let's be honest, none of us were taught this at school around it, and it's only the last few years that schools potentially started looking at this, and obviously sports have been doing it for a wee while. So it's understand that the thoughts you're having are just thoughts. They're not instructions, they're not demands, they don't hold us to ransom. And a lot of our thoughts can be very irrational and illogical, and particularly as we start getting into stressful situations, it's even more important to create an awareness of what those thoughts are. But the key thing around it is the ability to, often we talk about going to breath so you're calmer. When you're calmer, you'll tend to make better choices.
Right.
But often people don't. They don't go to breath. They just kind of almost freeze, almost that fight, flight, freeze part to it. And that's when they get themselves in trouble. So a lot of it is around accepting, if you're always nervous before a race, accepting that's what's going to happen. It's okay. Nerves don't stop you doing anything. But it's being aware of those nerves. And once you have the nerves, okay, what do I need to do now? Well, I just need to go to breath. So I'm calming myself down, ideally through the nose, out the mouth. And it could just be a physical grounding technique where you might be on a bike and you might feel the handlebars in the bike and just bring yourself into that present moment. You might have a drink and just be very intentional around it. So often we talk about being more mindful around things, but it's also accepting that all that stuff is going to happen. I mean, the best athletes in the world get nervous. Mental toughness isn't not feeling this stuff. Mental toughness is being able to feel it, acknowledge it, and then do something with it. And no different from your body. If you feel pain in your ankle, you'd acknowledge it, you'd stop, you might ice it, you might strap it, you might do something with it, you do an intervention. But with the brain, we just don't seem to be very good at doing that. We just kind of just bundle our way through and hope it will get better. So for any athlete who knows they get nervous before a race, cool, it's fine, that's normal. It's just your survival part of your brain kicking in a wee bit. So go to breath, ground yourself into the moment, bring yourself present, and then sometimes you got to repeat that 100 times, sometimes you do it once, and your way to go. So, as I said, the brain isn't always logical. No one gave us a manual how to manage the brain. But what we do know is that if we can understand that the brain will take you to funny places, that's normal. Just acknowledge it, accept it, it's going to happen, don't try and fight it. But almost imagine those thoughts are like a bit of a, I suppose, stream going through your head. Just let them go, back to breath, and then bring in the thoughts that you want.
One part of that is add a bit of sleep deprivation and it gets worse, doesn't it? Like that professor
Because it
brain
does.
that like you don't have the such good conscious thought when the kids have been up all night and then the teenager's useless in the morning, whatever it is, and then it all sort of gets out of hand, doesn't it? I guess that is just accentuated in those situations, aren't they?
Look, it is, and that comes back to that awareness of being aware of how you're managing. I mean, how often do we get up in the morning and do a mental check-in? We don't. We might do a physical check-in because we might get up and feel the ankle sore or the knee sore. We look in the mirror to see how we look, but we don't very often stop and pause and go, right, how am I going? Well, it was a tough night last night. The kids were all over the place. Didn't get a good night's sleep. Okay, cool. So now what do I need to do? And that's the key part to it. You know, what's the intervention? And you guys are going to talk about nutrition later on. That could be something you need. Okay, I need to be aware of my energy today and making sure I'm eating consistently. I may need to make sure I'm having a couple more breaks today and stopping and pausing. You know, I may need to get, you know, on the way home from work, maybe stop at a coffee shop and sit and just give myself a bit of a rest. And this is, again, the bit we're not very good at around it, because it's like kind of the road rage situation. If you've looked after yourself, you're not too stressed and you know, things are going okay. Someone pulls out in front of you, we tend to respond in an okay way. If you're stressed and you're tired and you're in a hurry and someone pulls out in front of you, our response is slightly different. So it's the same event, but it's a different response. And this is the key. You know, anyone who performs consistently in any sport, generally there's a well-being component to that. So they know what they need to be doing in the sense of their sleep and their nutrition and managing themselves. And that's the key thing. You can't work a 60-hour week and get hardly any sleep and then expect to perform on Saturday. So, you know, when you see these top athletes, well, you know, the reason they train 20 hours a week and do bugger all the rest of the time is recovery. And that's the key thing for, you know, some of our weekend warriors and bits and pieces is that, you know, that they will train in the morning and go and do an 8-hour day. And then they get home to their kids and their family. And so, you know, the brain's like any other muscle. You can wear it out. So it's been really clear on what will allow you to be at your best on a consistent basis. And then how do you put a high price on that? Knowing there's lots of distractions that will take us away from there. And that's the real challenge in this wellbeing space or this performance space, because it's really hard. I mean, we're not very good at looking after ourselves and we just don't put a very high price on it.
Nice. Which kind of leads me into my next question, coping with injuries. It's something that happens and it will happen to all of us in some way, shape or form. And some of us respond better and some of us don't respond better. What are some tools that we can have in our toolbox to, I mean, especially injuries that take a while to get back from, setbacks big and small? Is there anything that we can think about there?
Yeah, look, I think the key thing around injuries is one, giving yourself a space to grieve. And I know probably grieve sounds like a strong word, but, you know, if you've trained for a big competition, one you really want to go in and you get injured and you can't go, there is a sense of sadness around that. It's okay to give yourself space to be upset around it. And often, you know, people always go, you know, you'll get over it with time or heal. It's like, I don't think we get over it, we just manage it better. So part of it is giving yourself space to be upset. Now, what that looks like is different for everyone. And the second part, once you've done that, is going, okay, well, these are things I can't do. What can I do? Because you look at it from a sporting context, we often talk about the 6 pillars, you know, which is technical, tactical, physical, mental, nutritional, and then life balance. And for most sports, we rely on physical. And we think physical is the main tool of training. Well, if you're off, there's a great chance there's some more mental training. What does that look like around imagery, around some mindfulness or some breathing work or whatever it is? What's some tactical stuff you could do around your racing or whether it's biking or whatever it is? What's some stuff you could learn in that space? You touched on nutrition tonight. Okay, how do I get better at my nutrition while I'm doing this other stuff? And it's almost changing the lens from what I can't do to what can I do. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to feel good all the time, but it means you're just shifting that focus a wee bit. And that's the key thing around it, is that giving yourself something to do you can get better at. So then when you physically become better, you actually improve these other areas too. So you actually come back a better athlete than what you had before the injury. So there's no magic wand to it. I mean, often it's around that, you know, family support, your partners doing other things around it. But it's been okay with not being okay when those things happen. It's okay to be disappointed. And it's okay for it to hurt a wee bit. But then it's almost, okay, what do I do now to kind of bounce forward? Excuse me. So I don't have to bounce back. I'm actually bouncing forward to become better.
Putting a plan in place is what you're saying around other elements, but then also in terms of your rehab and getting stuck into that.
Look, definitely, and it's how do you get, you know, the best rehab in the world? Because the reality is, most sports, there's going to be an injury component to it. So it's accepting that's going to happen, and it is frustrating. I mean, there's some athletes I work with who have had almost 4 years of injuries at times. It is really, really hard and it's challenging. But the ones that tend to manage that better are the ones that bump up against some other things. They have other interests, they have other things they can do, and they do shift their focus to mastering other parts of their performance, not just the physical parts of performance. There's lots of other parts to it. So, and as I said, even when you're doing that, there will be days which are a struggle, and it could be when the competition's on or you see a competitor doing well. So it's been okay with whatever feelings that gives you, and then almost going to allow those feelings to go and then go, right, what do I need to do now?
Yeah, brilliant. I'm going to read a bit of a quote out here from one of our athletes. Under the banner of goal setting's not the problem, it's how do we actually start doing. So I just can't seem to get out of bed in the morning for those morning workouts. This might be talking about Angus, who isn't here tonight. I'm just not a morning person. I go to bed with the good intentions, but when the alarm goes off, I convince myself that I need more sleep and I'll get it done after work. So how do we mobilize the oomph to actually start doing some of those things to actually help reach those goals rather than keeping derailing ourselves in that space?
Look, it's a great question, and it's one I think we want the magic answer to. If you do this, then I'll be motivated all the time.
Yep.
If you peel it back a wee bit, sometimes, and I think we might have touched on this last time, it's really understanding your why. Well, what is the why for doing it? Because the why will then tend to let you go from motivation to determination, basically around it. Look, it's an interesting one. I did Manny Pacquiao, I think the boxer, he talked around his secret was the power of three. And what he talked around there is having clear goals. Obviously, this person's got goals, he said, but then the next part to it is having systems in place to achieve those goals. Okay, so that's basically your habits and routines. But the third and most important one is, have you then got the discipline to execute those systems? And that's the key thing. And often, if you read the book Atomic Habits, it almost talks around goals aren't the issue; it's actually your habits. And so it's around creating those habits that allow you to get up, and it's having your gym clothes, going to bed in your gym clothes if you have to, but making it easier to be able to get up in the morning and being okay. It's going to be hard. I mean, who wants to get up at 6 a.m. at the moment when it's freezing cold? None of us want to.
Yep.
But it's actually going, well, what are the things that get in the way of that? Well, this one he talks about sleep. Well, go to bed a little bit earlier. Take your phone out of your room. Do some really practical things that allow you to do it. And then when you do it really well, give yourself a pat in the back and go, right, I've got to reset and start again tomorrow. Because it's a really common question that, and I think everyone wants this magic answer. If you just do this, it will happen. My experience is, ordinary people do extraordinary things by just getting themselves into healthy habits and routines, which allow them to achieve their goals. Because at the end of the day, we've all got the same goals. Everyone wants to be good at something. But who's prepared to be disciplined in achieving those goals? And it's okay. It's hard. I mean, a lot of the stuff in your area, it's not an easy sport you guys are doing. It's an endurance. Well, that's not easy. I mean, if you want easy, go and play chess, because you can sit there all day and have a pizza and a beer and play chess. The sport you guys have chosen, it's going to be hard. So how do you reframe hard to be something you actually want to do and enjoy it? And it's just, again, I use that word lens. It's shifting that lens to what you're trying to do. So for this guy here, he might go, right, this week I'm just going to look to get up 3 times and train. That's the goal for this week. And the next week, I'm going to get up 3 times again, but train a little bit longer. Then the next week, I'm going to get up 4 times. And it's just that, it's almost those 1% increases each time. If you need to, as I said, get a buddy. Get someone who can help you with it. Get someone who's going to ring you up. Get accountability buddy. Say to your mate, if I'm not there tomorrow, I'm going to give you $100. Whatever's going to drive you to get yourself out of bed, that's going to get you going basically around it. Because if you want to do it, you will do it. I mean, we talk about procrastination. There's no such word as that. It's just you actually don't want to do it. Okay. So if I said to you, right, tomorrow I want you to be at 5 o'clock at the bridle path. You wake up at 4:45 tomorrow going, I don't know, 5 o'clock. It's pretty cold. Yeah. You probably wouldn't do it. If I said, right, I want you at the bridle path tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I'll give you $2 million. Guess who's getting out of bed tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a strong why for that one. So understand the why of doing it. And also, if you're not a morning person, then train in the evening. There are people who actually are better in the evening than in the morning. So make it as easy as you can to actually do it, but understand it will still be hard. And I think this is I think we confuse things with is that, mentally tough people don't find it hard. No, they do. A lot of athletes get to train and they don't want to be there. But what they're able to do is go, right, what's my why for being here? What's my goal? Today could be a bit of a grind. So today's going to be a 7 out of 10 day. It's not going to be 10 out of 10, but today's going to be 7. But I know if I do that 7, I might tip into an 8 today, and I'll take that compared to not doing it at all.
Yep. Yeah, brilliant.
Nice.
And I liked the way that you're sort of talking about that social element as well. Like bring that in, bring others to sort of help us actually get out of bed and rely on others. That's one thing that I've done is like the Zwift group sessions on a Monday morning at 6:15. I'd never get up on a Monday morning at 6:15 unless there were another 15, 20 people sort of waiting for me to arrive. So feet on the floor and get amongst it.
Listen, so what we remember, we're relationship animals. We're born for that. We lived in tribes hundreds and hundreds of years ago with lots of people, and now we don't. We live in houses with our own bedrooms and our own rooms and our own screens. Yeah. So one of the key things we crave is relationship engagement. It's one of the things we probably as a society don't get as much now. So, if you're struggling for that motivation, get a tribe, get a crew, because there is a bit more motivation. It becomes a bit more enjoyable, and have someone there who will give you a wee kick if you need one, because we all need it sometimes. But as you said, I think when you have people there, you feel like you let them down, so that gives you that bit more reason to get up and do things. So just making it easier is the best option.
Brilliant. Good job. One question sort of following on from that, when the going gets tough, the tough leave me behind. How do I resist the urge to quit? How do I actually keep going hard and dig deeper rather than I'll just sit here and cruise for a bit?
Yeah, look, again, great question. And there's not a simple answer in the sense, do this and it's the way it goes. But the starting point is simple goals. Okay, so being really clear on, so one, don't compare yourself to what other people are doing. Worst thing you can do, because everyone's different in the space and different experiences, different ages, different stages. So, once you start comparing yourself, then often we compare ourselves to the negative. Making sure when you're competing against yourself. So set your time, set what you want to be doing, and again, look to improve 1% each time. So if you're struggling in this space, guess what? We all are. You've got to learn to push beyond that. So look for opportunities in your training. You can't train in the kind world if you want to compete in the wicked world. So really think about what does your training look like, and how do you practice pushing beyond in training also, and making sure it's not a goal that's going to stretch you, it's a goal that's going to grow you. So really think about what the training looks like. Think about, okay, when it is getting hard mentally, where do I go? Do I go to a place where I just find a spot on the ground? Do I focus on driving my arms? Where do you need to go when it's hard? Because remember, the brain doesn't want to, the brain sees cars and motorbikes and easy things to get around. It doesn't want to run a long way or bike a long way. So what we're going to do is kind of retrain the brain around it. So it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. So if you're training yourself, if you're focusing each time you're going for a run instead of having the headphones on and music, then you're training the brain. Because often you see a lot of athletes with the headphones on and music when they're training. Well, that's not how you compete. So I always challenge athletes, particularly if that's not going to replicate what they're doing, because you've got to create that space where you actually have to manage thoughts around it. So one, it's just setting simple goals. So that when you know it's going to get hard, almost go, how do I reframe this? Right. Now it's getting hard. That means I'm pushing myself. This is a good space. Now it's getting hard. It means I'm probably getting close to the finish because I'm going faster. So where do I need to put my attention to? Because often we talk about, attention is the currency of performance. Because once we get tired, our attention will start going. And we're going to make sure, where do I bring my attention and my focus back to? Because if you don't bring it back to something, I think you will subconsciously start slowing down, because the brain just goes, look, this is hard. I don't want to do this. Yeah. So what do you need to be saying? There's a quote I saw the other day that talked about, we don't run out of willpower, we run out of self-talk. I think it's very true. So when you are feeling like, well, someone's getting away with me, what am I saying to myself to keep myself in the game? Because the negative stuff will come. If you can't reply to that, then that's when we start consciously and subconsciously slowing down, basically.
That's right. And that's technique is one thing I often talk about in that space. Actually just go back to how you're doing it and focus on your own performance in that time.
Perfect. And again, it's just about practicing it. And it could be, it's literally focusing on your arms or keeping your shoulders back or head up, or it could be saying to yourself, I've got this, I'm strong, 1 foot. I mean, if you bring that in, it means the other stuff's not there. Okay. If you let your mind go, then the other stuff, she's in there straight away and bombarding us. And so it's the ability to go, okay, when that happens, cool, almost let's let that go, but I need to bring it to something. And you can play around. There's no magic thing to bring it to. But if you bring it to something, then we've got to keep pushing forward with that. It's often we call it that kind of that process goal.
Yep. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. John, what I really like about what you're saying is that we often hear lots of these words bounced around, not just in a high performance setting, but in kind of a general health and wellness kind of setting overall, but to hear what you were saying and how it actually applies to high performance athletes, I think it's really nice to hear, and that practical application does actually go a long way to making those 1% increases, rather than just going out swimming, biking, running, kayaking or whatever. But all of those little 1% bits that you're talking about along the way actually add up to quite a lot of an improvement overall.
Look, it is massive. You look at 1% a day, 7% a week, 30% a month. Life becomes easy, but it's never quite as cut and dry as that. But if you can look at it, how do I improve that a little bit? But often we're impatient. We're in an impatient society, Luckily, our age group, we remember the old dial-up internet, so we're a bit more patient. You bring the page up and go and have a cup of tea and come back and realise it was the wrong page and you start all over again. So we are a very instant gratification society, and that's a real worry, because then we're not prepared to be patient. Now, any growth takes time. And that's the key thing around it. And what keeps us engaged, and it goes back to that motivation, is those little gains. If we wait for the big one, it takes too long. So what's those little victories each day I'm making, going towards? There was a great thing on Facebook, and it had these, 2 ladders, and one ladder had these little steps, and one that had these big steps. And the one with the little ladder had this little steps, this guy getting to the top, so it was easy to get little steps. And the other ladder had the big steps, and a guy kind of trying to jump up to get to the first step. And I think too often we're on the right side ladder. We're jumping up to get there because we want it straight away, and it's too hard, and we just give up because it's too hard. So it is breaking those things down to manageable bites, and some people can manage more and some people can't. But the beauty of all this, it's all learnt behaviour. None of us were born this way. It's all learnt, and the reason a lot of your work with the fit and strong, because they've trained it, repetition. Mm-hmm. Well, if they then bring their mind into the same thing, you get a 2-for-1 deal. So when you're going for that run, you're training the brain at the same time, you're training your focus, you're training your thoughts, then you got your mind-body connection. It's a 2-for-1 deal, but most of us just train the body.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess thinking in a simple sense, it's kind of simulating the race, isn't it? Actually putting yourself in the same environment, the same distance, the same gear, the same nutrition, the same. So it's not a shock when you get there. And then actually doing some practice races, because there's nothing like actually learning by like actually putting your toe on the start line, and you always learn something by doing that.
Look, you do, and look, a lot of this stuff takes a bit of courage, because most of us live in that wee comfort zone because it's comfortable, and so it's about, okay, well, what can I do just to get outside there? And as you said, that if you can replicate what the race is going to be like, the race should be the easy part because you've trained for it around it. But we can't train at this level and compete at this level. And that's the reality of it. And he's on sevens for years under Gordon Titchens when they had that amazing talent. All they used to do is they used to train at this level, and the game was here. So it was easy. You're stepping down to the game, where most people, it's the other way around. They will train here and then want to play up here. Well, that's not going to happen. So you've got, your training has to be harder than the competition sometimes, because yes, to be honest, the competition should be the fun part. You've trained for it for 4 weeks or 6 months. It should be the bit you enjoy, but too many people, they get nervous around it because they don't feel they're ready for it. It's like an exam. If you study for an exam, you know roughly what's in it, you will go in it with a bit of confidence. If you do no study for an exam, you go into it, well, there's certainly a few butterflies, because the brain goes, I've got no idea what we're doing here. So how you prepare is how you're going to race. You can't outperform your preparation.
Perfect. Good stuff, John.
Hey, you got me fizzed up. I'm fizzed up just listening to all of this. That's really good.
But it's hard. As I said, the theory of this is what I've said. It's hard, and that's the key thing. The last thing I'd say is self-compassion is a huge component to this, because, listening to what I'm saying, I don't get this right. I know inside out, and I still get it wrong. So we've got to show that self-compassion when we don't quite get it right. But if you have a goal and a plan, you've got a more chance of getting moving forward with it. So it's a battle for all of us.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
And keep it real, little bits at a time, and keep on trying. Keep yourself getting out of bed in the morning and having a crack.
Perfect. Sounds brilliant.
Well done, John. Thanks for your time.
Cool.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks. Really good stuff.
Thank you.
Cheers.
See you soon.
Whew.
James,
how good is that?
Your performance by 20 to 30%. What would you give it?
Well, yeah. Look, I've made a few notes actually here, so I'm trying to take on.
There's a ream of paper there.
There's more than just one. Yeah. I've taken lots of notes, but yeah, some really good stuff. I think and this is kind of what we do a lot of work with, sort of day in, day out, but the power of 3, the goals, the systems, and then you can have the goals in the system, but without the discipline to get up and do it, That's the bit that really kind of brings those other two together. I really like that part of it.
Yeah, I also like the moment that he's talked about the training and preparing in a wicked world opposed to a nice world. Like when you're going head to head against somebody in a race, like harking back to my coast to coast experience, getting second at the last moment, but going head to head all day. And then like actually that's you're not, it's not nice. You actually want to beat the person. Whereas often in our training we'll go hard for bits, but actually we'll chat and stuff like that. But actually, hey, being a bit brutal about it, it's not a place often that we spend much time in. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How you develop a bit of that killer instinct.
Yeah, and that's often the one that I think is hard to find. I know I've got a couple of people that spring to mind that love the training process, but then actually getting onto the start line, it's not so much nerves, but it's actually not wanting to be nasty. Like, oh, that person, I don't want to pass them because they're working really hard or something like that. It's actually saying, no, I've worked, I've earned to be in the front of this race, or I've earned to be on this position. I'm okay with actually working hard because it's my potential that I'm fulfilling. Yeah,
that's right. No, very good. That's awesome. Fantastic. And John managed to squeak away before we actually did our quick five. So he did well there, didn't he?
I think so. I was really keen to hear the favourite sporting moment. I was really keen to hear what that would have been. From a man with someone like his experience, I bet it was an absolute doozy as well.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait till next time for that. That's all good. Part 2 of our show, we've got Kevin Holland on board that we're going to have a chat to. But before we do, just remember, if you make a comment during the show, a note of learning, like we've just mentioned there, we've got a Team CP nutrition consultation with Cushla Jackson, our Team CP dietitian, that we're going to give away towards the actually next show. So even if you listen to this on a podcast, make a comment, email it, text us, message us, and then we'll go into the draw to win that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Super valuable. It really is the fourth discipline, isn't it? If you're a triathlete buff like myself, or a multi-sporter, that might be the fifth discipline like yourself. But either way, it really is that part that brings everything else together. You can train as hard as you like, but the nutrition side of it really kind of adds that another element on top, just like all John's mental training. Kushla's expertise in nutrition is what really takes you to the next level. So yeah, make sure you get your comments and your questions in as quickly as possible. The best one has got to be out there somewhere.
Yeah, good job. Should we bring Kevin on the show, James? Do you want to click the buttons? So Kevin has been around for a bit. He's done a bunch of different events and bits and pieces with us, but he's in amongst his winter training and giving it heaps. So Kevin, how are you getting on this evening?
Kia ora. I'm getting on excellently. I'm having a ball with this winter training. It's going better than any winter before.
Yeah. Brilliant. So let's just take a jump back, shall we, Kevin? Tell us about your first event. What was it? Why did you sign up for it, and how did you go?
A lot of my stories around endurance sports starts with when I was snowboarding. I had this accident, and I broke my fingers snowboarding. I've been a sailor all my life, and I couldn't hold any ropes, and I was getting tired and fat and lazy, and I thought, I need a challenge. I know, I'll run a marathon. Millions of people run a marathon. How hard can it be? 4.5 months later, I respected millions more people.
Yeah, brilliant. So how did you go? So it was a bit of a battle, was it?
I actually hadn't even run 10K before I started out to do the marathon.
Right.
Sorry, hang on. Let's just clarify. Did you say that the furthest you'd run before you'd run a marathon was 10 kilometers?
Before I started training, yeah. So I went from...
okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went from a sub 10K runner to a marathon in 4.5 months. And the best advice I got was, you're going to be injured.
Yeah. And did you get injured?
All the time. It was a disaster, but I got there.
Good job. And what have you got on the horizon for the summer ahead, Kevin?
Absolutely, the coast to coast. Your intro was slightly wrong. I didn't get to do the coast to coast this year. I ended up in hospital the week before.
That's right. Yeah, that's and talking to John about that. You must have definitely been a bit of a grieving process around that, because you did work very, very hard for that and then not able to make it for being
Yeah,
right at the
there
last minute.
definitely was. I was fortunate that in September I said to my buddy paddling down the Waimak Gorge, if we don't get to the start line, the process has been worth it. And I held on to that, but it was really, really hard on the 2 race days because I knew all day exactly where I was going to be. And that was unexpectedly tough.
Yes, yeah, that would have been very tough. So where are you at the moment? So you've got Coast to Coast. We're going to have another crack at that. How is your training going now compared to previous winters? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, winter. I've always had a winter slump. Last winter was my most successful because I lowered my expectations. So as opposed to setting a plan up and failing, I actually really lowered the expectations and achieved more than I ever had before. It was still a slump, but not as deep as previous winter slumps.
Right.
This winter with Zwift, I'm just having a solid building period.
Yeah, brilliant. So Zwift is a new thing for you. We sort of a fair bit of research went on around, should I get a smart trainer, should I not? But how have you found that?
I think bang for buck, it's the best training money I've ever spent. I splashed out for the smart trainer. Don't regret it one piece.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. It's fun. It's engaging. It's taking my weakness. Cycling's been my weakness, and I think I'll come out of winter with cycling as my strength.
Yeah, cool.
It's certainly building my capacity. I'm having a break from running until the midwinter solstice because the days start to get longer then. So I'm restarting running on the 22nd.
Yeah, nice. And so, what is it about Zwift? Well, like you're right into that. So there's a few different elements to it, isn't it? Like we've got our group sessions that we do, which I think you've got amongst lots, but mixing it up tonight with us. And then there's also the sort of workouts that you do, and sort of actually just going for a ride on Zwift. But I heard a rumor that you before the show that you actually spent 6 hours on Zwift on Sunday while it was raining. That was not a thing that you would do if you had your normal bike on that sort of weather. So that's pretty epic. What did you do there?
I did a sort of a gentle ride. I needed more vertical.
Okay.
I was in the May Challenge, the Everest Challenge.
Yeah.
And I didn't start very well. In fact, I just signed up for it and ignored it. So I think on the Sunday, 8 days before the end, I had 1,800 meters.
Okay, that's a bit of work to do. Yep.
So I did 7,000 in the last 8 days, I think.
Right, and you managed to tick it over. How'd you get on? How'd you finish up?
I went up to Zwift plenty of times.
Right.
I ended up at 8,900.
Oh, good job. That's awesome. It might have been similar to me towards the end there. I have to say, I had a Sunday similar to you, actually. Needed a few meters, but was completely broken from my first day at playing football for like 30 years, my under 12s versus playing on Saturday, and just be able to get on the bike and just chip away and earn some vertical meters is a good way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I certainly never would have been out in the cold and the wet and doing that kind of thing. So it's worked really well for me. So it's going to take that weakness, make it a strength, take that slump and make it a build.
Good on you. So we've been sort of known each other for a few years now, and sort of through when you did the Kepler challenge and a bunch of running stuff, and then sort of doing some things together for the Coast to Coast and bits and pieces. So what's one or two key learnings that you could share that from our learning and working together for others doing similar sorts of things?
As an older athlete, I'm late 50s, don't push past what you can recover from. Okay. I don't suffer from some of the motivational problems, especially if it's any kind of adventure. I love getting out and doing the long, hard things. But it's very easy as you get older to train past what you can recover from.
Right.
So I have to make sure that I limit myself and don't push myself into a place where I end up crashing.
That's so good. That's such great advice, isn't it? Don't push past what you can't recover from. That's really good. Yeah, good stuff. I really like that. I think that's one thing that, particularly what John's saying about talking with, some of those, some like professionals that really just do that. That is their job, isn't it? Is to train and train and train. But then they have all of the facilities to recover from at the end. So being a functional person and a member of a family and working and doing all those other things that I'm sure you do as well, Kevin, but actually saying, no, I've got to do that, and that's part of my priority as well as being a newly converted Zwift rider.
Yeah. So and then I think the other little learning I think from the time, Richard, is do the little sessions. Do the 5-minute and the 15-minute sessions. They're the ones that I find the hardest.
Yep, nice work. To make time for it, not to get to Sunday and go, oh, that little session I didn't actually get that done, because they're so easy, but they're hard to actually fit in, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm much more likely to get a 2 or a 5-hour session in than I am ever a 15-minute one.
Nice work, yeah, that's great.
But they still have value. So remember those little sessions as well. They've got their place.
Yeah, they all add up, don't they? Yeah. Nice. Well, tell you what, Kevin, we had a great insight, and I really love hearing about what you've been doing, especially last weekend with that big Zwift ride to finish it all off. So let's wrap it up with a quick 5. So quick 5 questions. You're only allowed as few words as possible. So we'll kick it off. Training morning or evening for you?
Evening. I can't survive at work.
That's
good. Okay.
Good job. Favorite run?
Getting dropped at Gebby's Pass and running home over Mount Herbert. I live on the bottom of Mount Herbert.
Oh,
nice.
Cool.
A fancy meal out or staying at home for a nice cooked meal in?
Nice cooked meal in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
nice.
Good job. And a favorite event of all time?
Old Ghost.
Oh, the Old Ghost
cool.
Ultra.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Very good. Yeah, great job.
The only event that's gone smoothly for me.
It's all adventure, isn't it? It's all part of the adventure. What about, I think I know the answer to this one now, but the final question, swim, bike, kayak, run, or other?
Oh, kayak. Absolutely kayak.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice.
So,
I thought you were going to say Zwift there for a moment, but no, kayak. No. Okay.
Kayak, yeah. I've been a sailor all my life. I've been a water person. I'm just loving the kayaking. Good, so awesome. I've been doing a bit of whitewater kayaking just till the end of May, as well as the multi-sport.
Yeah,
jolly good.
Well, Kevin. Hey, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your time. All the best for standing on the start line in the Coast to Coast 2022. I'm looking forward to cheering on and onwards, upwards. It's going to be really exciting just to see how fit you get and how strong you get and all the adventures along the way, and hopefully get to cheer you across the finish line.
I look forward to it. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, you certainly will.
Nice,
good job, Kevin.
I love
Thanks,
nice one, Kevin. Thanks very much. Take care. See ya. Nice. Good stuff. How good. I love hearing those stories. And that Zwifting really is a popular thing, isn't it? You know, we're really kind of getting some momentum with that, getting people on for group rides. It's a good, honest session, isn't it? And because you have to be there, you'll be reaping the benefits, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's good, eh? Like we had 38 people on our group Zwift ride tonight, which is just awesome. So good to mix it up and just to see how, we'll get to know sort of virtually a few people and how much effort's been put in and things. It's really cool. So, awesome little tool to help us from our perspective, I guess, develop and build our community of people, and they don't have to be in Christchurch, which is pretty awesome. So, good to be able to get amongst it. How's that hot seat going, James?
I'll tell you what, I'm in this nice, airy, true fleece top. It feels really nice. I tell you what, these are really nice, aren't they? This is our official clothing partner, and sitting in the hot seat here, I feel light, breathable, and comfortable in my 100% merino top, made in New Zealand as well. Truefleece.com.
All over it. Good stuff. You obviously had some lessons from Angus earlier on the week.
He's hot in my ear. No, really good. I really enjoyed that chat with Kevin, and good on him for turning what he called a weakness into a strength by jumping on Zwift. I thought it was really cool. So, yeah, good stuff.
Good job. So just
Final
a
part of the
reminder.
show, eh? What are we going to do? Kushla, talk to me about it. What's happening here?
Yeah. Well, first start, if you've got something that you've learnt throughout the show or a question you want to ask, throw it up there on the comments, or if you're listening to this at the same time, flick us a message. We want to give away a consultation to catch up with Cushla and talk all things nutrition to see if we can help you out. So should we get Cushla on the show? Is she in the back there, James?
Yeah. Absolutely. There's some really good questions coming in, so do keep them coming in. We are reading them, but without further ado, Team CP Nutrition extraordinaire, Cushla Jackson. Here she is. G'day, Cushla.
Hello.
Hey.
How about that for an intro, Cushla?
What was that? Sorry.
I was just going to say, how about that for an intro?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. I was impressed by your advertising skills, James. I'm feeling like I need a True Fleece t-shirt myself.
Well, there you go. You know, we're from truefleece.com. They've got a great website and they've got all your clothing needs.
Cushla, how's everything been going on in your space, talking and helping and learning and educating people all things nutrition lately?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Loving it, and had a really good variety of people coming through recently. A lot of new people. So a lot of people focusing on that now with their summer events in the next sort of 6 to 8 months time. So it's been, really good time.
Nice. And it is a good time of the year for that, isn't it? Like, I guess there's not too much else going on. There's no school holidays happening. There's a long weekend this weekend. Not too many people that I've sort of heard of are necessarily going away so much, but we can get into a rhythm, develop some routines, and really make some changes or improvements or adjustments to our nutrition.
Definitely. And it's the time of the year to be doing it now. You'd be surprised how many people send me a message a week, before Coast to Coast or Old Ghost Ultra or something. Hey, can I please have some help? I've never met them before. And it's like, probably should have got in touch with me about 6 months ago, but
have a crack at this sort of thing and see what you can do. Because you always help somebody out as best as you can, but now's the time, isn't it? That's, I guess, what we're saying.
Yeah, there's not much you can do a week out, really.
Yeah, that's right. So we sort of had a bit of a chat earlier on in the week, and basically my key question to you was, what's the thing you often sort of come across or help out, or what's the key issues that people are often having? And one thing you come back to me is don't try anything new on race day, which we've heard a lot, and that's a lot of something that we hear around that nutrition space, which feels like, oh, yep, okay, I think we've got that one, Cushla. But it's not just that, is it? Tell me more about that in terms of don't try anything new on race day.
There's a bit more to that one, but you'd be surprised how much I feel like we repeat that. Like every day we say that virtually, and people still do it even when I've made them a plan. So it happens. But I guess what I wanted to talk about tonight was how you actually practice that nutrition and the key points around that. So one problem I commonly see is that people, they go and practice their nutrition, they might go and take a few different foods, and they'll go and do like a bit of a fun day mission with some friends, and it's pretty cruisy and fun, and everything goes pretty well. What then happens is they'll try that once and go, sweet, that worked, and then they'll go into race day where you throw in different times of meals, nerves, and a whole different intensity, and suddenly they're not tolerating anything at all because they haven't practiced all of those other variables and with the nutrition as well.
Right. Okay. So how do we best do that?
So I encourage people because I mostly work with endurance athletes, ideally once a week in those longer training sessions is an opportunity to practice that nutrition. So it should be happening at least once a week, because firstly, you should be fueling yourself through those longer sessions. And secondly, it's a perfect opportunity to practice what you want to do on race day. Additionally, in some of the shorter but more intensive sessions in the week where you don't actually think you need nutrition, that's the perfect time to try foods at a higher intensity. Okay,
nice. Right. So in my Zwift session, as I'm sprinting for the finish line tonight, if I can do a muesli bar at that same time, it's okay. Chances are I'll probably choke on it and fall over sideways.
Yeah, and then you work out, okay, that's not so ideal for the higher intensity cycling. Yeah, and it's other little things too, like when you're practicing, you work out where things are best kept in your pack and what works and what wrappers work. Little things like that. It actually goes a long way. And the other thing, like more in, say, your road race, marathon type runs, practicing your drink technique. So like, you know, if you're planning on being quite competitive and say aiming for, I don't know, sub 3.5 marathon, you know, have you practiced running past, have you practiced running past a drink station at that speed and trying to get a decent amount of fluid in? Does that actually work for you?
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Or do you just end up throwing it at your face and hoping you absorb some through your skin? Or as it gets sticky and messy. But and then also, hey, if it doesn't work, well, how can I do it differently? So actually, maybe I'll just walk through that, get a proper drink in because it's hot today, and then I'll carry on at least. And that's a good tactic. But I know how to do that. Well, that's my way to do it because of practice.
Yeah. And actually in your training, you worked out that you can guzzle back, you know, 150 mils and you're fine, or actually you have to sip away at it quite slowly to tolerate it better. So again, comes down to what worked for you in training.
Yeah, one thing I talked about today actually was someone running and with a camelback on. And actually, how do you know if you've actually drunk it all? That's a big issue, isn't it? Like actually practicing that, because it's a really tricky thing to figure out. And would you find that actually most of the time that people tend to carry all this stuff on their back but actually don't have it, rather than actually have it all and they've got nothing left? Would that be the case? Oops.
Oh, that was going so well.
Was
interesting. While Cushla comes back online, that's an interesting point that you say about going for a walk or doing an event and having a camelback, but then getting to the end of the event and you've still got half what you had at the beginning, and you've just carried all of this excess weight around that you didn't actually need or use.
No, that's right. When running, especially as a power weight ratio sport, isn't it? Every time you take a step, you have to carry your own body weight. So actually having a crack at knowing what you can actually drink and what you can stomach and how it feels, and can you squash the bottom of your bag to see if you've got any left.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Cushla, we were just discussing that the idea of having a camelback, for example, but then not knowing how much you've actually used, or getting to the end of the event and having carted all around this food or this water or whatever it is that you've just expended energy in actually carrying.
It's a tricky one. I always thought it would be a great business venture to design something that has a gauge where you can see how much you've drunk, because it would make life so much easier. But I think it comes down to practice and sort of knowing, you know, how much you'd have, like, you know, sipping away every 10 minutes or so. And through practice, you kind of get a good idea of where you're at with your camelback. But if it's your first time using it in the race, you'll kind of be, you know, you wouldn't have a clue where you're at with how much you've had. And you can sort of feel from weight and that sort of thing as well. But it is a bit trickier with a camelback compared to, like, you know, the flasks that you can refill and see.
Brilliant. Nice work, Cushla. Anything else?
I've got a question here. I'll tell you. Go. Sorry,
hold the phone. Sorry, James. Go for your life, James.
Someone's just asked a really good question, and it's kind of in line with race day nutrition and things like that. But George has come in with a question. Cushla, what are your thoughts on beetroot juice for athletic performance on race day, or beetroot in general? Because that's kind of been a bit of a hot topic or a fad in some ways. What's the deal there? What do you think?
Yeah, it is one of this kind of new supplements, I guess, out there, but there is actually quite a bit of science behind it to back it, so it's quite an interesting one. What the evidence suggests is that basically beetroot or beetroot juice acts as sort of a vasodilator, so it allows us to sort of particularly in recovery, it helps more blood flow get into the muscles and helps the recovery process and sort of oxidize a bit more. So it has shown quite beneficial effects. There's still, because it's early days, there's still sort of more science needed around it, but I'd definitely say it's not causing harm and it's actually showing quite interesting outcomes. So if you're wanting to include beetroot in your diet around races or beetroot juice, then it's definitely probably going to have a little bit of a enhancement.
Nice.
But it has to be beetroot juice, doesn't it? Just in terms of the amount of nitrates that are involved, rather than just eating a whole bunch of beetroot. It needs to be more concentrated.
Yeah. In terms of efficiency, it's easier to probably drink the juice than eating a ton of beetroot. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine that could also get kind of messy too. Like, you'd probably want to be wearing not your race day number ones. You'll be wearing like your second or third selection of kit. So if you get beetroot all over you, it just doesn't really matter. All over your face or whatever. Yeah. Oh, the beetroot actually tastes good though too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
No, good tips, James.
Interesting.
Awesome.
Hey, look, yeah.
Good stuff. Anything else to add to finish up, Cushla, to summarize?
Practice. Like we say
practice.
that all the time, but I have literally made nutrition race plans for people, and then we catch up after the race and we talk about how it went, and they said, oh yeah, stuck mostly to the plan, and then I decided I'd add in this. Then it didn't go so well because they'd never tried it before. They just decided that I'd at race day. So stick to your plan, stick to what you've practiced, and practice like crazy in your training, because that's what it's for.
Good. And I really like your tip about give it heaps and practice that during a short session, because that's where we can put that intensity in as well. I really like that. That's awesome. Good tip.
Good.
I've learned something every time you talk, Cushla, and we'll take that one away and put that one in my pocket for next time.
Awesome. Yeah, great.
Good job. Brilliant.
Cushla, just before we go, can you remind us just really quickly, what's the best way for us to put people in touch with you? Because obviously through Team CP and, being the Team CP dietitian and expert, how best can we get people to where the knowledge is at?
Instagram is probably the best place to go to find some more knowledge. That's where I'm fairly active, or to get in touch, or via Team CP as well, website, Instagram, etc. It's pretty easy to get in contact with me.
Yep,
nice. Good stuff.
And you'll give people a call and have a bit of a chat about how you can help.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Oh, good. Well done, Cushla. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Cushla.
Okay, sorry about the internet.
Good job. All right.
It's all good.
See ya.
Bye. How good. Beetroots, eh? Good stuff. We're at the end of the show, and I've got a page full of notes. How about you? Have you got notes?
Yeah, no, I was just all hoping it's going to absorb through my skin like that marathon nutrition as I'm running past the aid station. Pure Sport Nutrition do a great beetroot powdered concentrate as well, by the way, James. One of our...
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they do. They do very well with that.
Okay, that's not one I've tried before. The lemon and lime's the lemon's my personal favorite. But now I know there's a beetroot flavored one. Okay, that's thanks for the question, George.
Drink. It's not a sports drink. It's just a concentrate itself. So something to go and have a bit of a play with, so you can get the amount that you need without having to eat beetroot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That can only in one of several ways, and none of those ways are particularly attractive or pretty.
Nice work. So James, what have you got coming up across the long weekend? What's happening for you?
Well, I've actually managed to get, I've got the long weekend off. So I've got a mountain bike as of a few days ago. So I'm absolutely fizzing on that. So it's what I mean. I'm retrospectively making up for my lack of Everesting effort during May. So it's going to be a ginormous June on the bike, I think.
Brilliant. And I think as part of that, we had a guest, John Odoms, a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about de-Everesting. So I think Everesting is all well and good, but I think it's all about the downhill with your new mountain bike, isn't it?
Oh, that's good. I like that. Yeah. So are you saying that I can get a season pass at the adventure park, so I don't actually have to ride up anymore? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying is that there's a day pass that needs to be happening, and just go down as much as you can, and see if you can stay in one piece at the end of it.
Nice. So you're there on the first chair and you're there on the last chair, and it's just as many downhill reps as you can get in one piece.
Yeah. Let's lock that in, James.
Oh, that sounds like a great option. Good stuff. What a way to wrap up the show.
Yeah, very good. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sitting in the hot seat, James. You've had a blinder, I have to say. Some good comments, and keep the show rolling along. Well done.
Good stuff. Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and we'll look forward to doing it again another time. Thanks to all our guests. Some really great stuff as always, eh?
Good job. And if you want to win a consultation with...
What happened there? Oh, we're still on.